Welcome again to another edition of Welcome to Fatherhood Interviews. My name is Sir Royce Briales, and I'm with my prestigious co-host, Dr. Raheem Young. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing well, man. How things on your end?
Man, all is well over here, man. No complaints.
That's good.
All right, I'm also pleased to announce we have a special guest. I want to make sure I get your name right. Can you say it for me?
Beki.
Beki, okay. And the last name?
Beki Mafuela.
There you go. Becky, thanks for jumping on with us, man. How's it going?
No, going well, Royce. Thanks for the invite, and nice to meet you both.
Yeah, so Becky, tell us a little bit more about yourself, man. So, what do you do for a living or for a purpose? And also, how many kids you got and what are their ages?
Cool. So, I work in the financial services industry. I've been a consultant for the past sort of 10 years now, different types of roles, from financial planning, wealth management, asset consulting, and for purpose-wise, very passionate about financial inclusion, inclusive growth, and access to, to financial services to a broader spectrum of the population. And my daughter just turned 4 months a few days ago.
That's cool. So can you talk about that experience as being a new dad, and like what are some of the changes that you've experienced?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been quite an interesting journey the last sort of 5-6 months, and probably a little bit longer, during this sort of 2-year period with COVID. I think sort of pre-COVID, like a lot of my life and revolved around my work. So a lot of time spent in work. So I'd almost call it like a work-life balance pre-COVID. But I think whilst COVID was obviously quite a challenging time and sad time for a lot of people for a lot of reasons, I think there's a little bit of a silver lining that it sort of reshifted us from focusing on work with a little bit of life to now focusing on life with a little bit of work. Hopefully, you still need to pay the rent. So I think certainly the last few months have given a different perspective, and I think I'm quite grateful for the ability to actually be present and spend this amount of time at home with my daughter. So I mean, I've just sort of taken a bit of a sabbatical, so I've been on a bit of an extended sabbatical now. And yeah, so I think it's exciting. I mean, obviously I'm still trying to think about how I balance out going forward, focusing on life and family, but also on your work as well, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's been a great journey. It's been a blessing. And yeah, looking forward to the future.
That's good.
So I know the future is going to be bright, man, but take me back to the moment when you found out you're becoming a dad. Like, what was going through your head during that time, man?
Yeah, so that was October 2021, sorry. And so my wife just came in, like, just broke the news. And like I think in an interesting way, like I felt like I was ready, because I mean I'm not young anymore. I'm turning 45 next year. So it was a pleasant surprise for me. And I kind of feel like I've been preparing without preparing for it, if that makes any sense.
So you say you're about to be 45?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you was like at 25 or something, man. You look young for your age.
Well, I suppose I can return the compliment right back at you as well, right?
So how did she break the news? She just came in and said that I'm pregnant, or was it over
Yeah,
dinner?
so she was like, oh, come have a look, right?
Uh,
So then we were trying to like interpret that little thing, like is the line at the right place, right? You don't wanna like misinterpret it and something like that. So she had like a pregnancy test thing, and so yeah, so that was quite exciting. She just sort of and we were all quite like anxiously excited, like like should you get too excited about this, or should you give it a bit more time and test it again? Like, just to make sure that it's no false alarm.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I mean, it's yeah. So she just told me like that, and then we kind of kept it to ourselves for quite a bit of time, until we felt like we were ready to share it with family and friends and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So walk me through the next phase. So she's pregnant now. She's going through changes. How are you helping, or how are you changing during that time too?
Yeah. So yeah. So some of it is probably like a little bit of a blur because there's so much going on, right?
It's a blur. It
Yeah.
goes by fast.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I suppose we'd have to ask here, like how I was showing up. Hopefully, I was showing up. Uh, trying to support as much as I possibly can. You know, um, and like lots of doctor visits. So obviously, being the designated driver. Uh, I
Did
think
she
I
have a
think she
type of food that she wanted to eat all the time? Was this like a certain craving that she had?
that's so she was eating a lot more for sure. I mean, my wife has got a healthy appetite, so she was definitely eating a lot more, but she stopped having coffee,
No
and
coffee.
she no coffee, yeah. So she didn't like it at all. So at least that's one food like one thing she dropped during that phase. She actually hasn't picked it up much even now anyway, you know. So yeah, but yeah, but not like the sort of like craving for McDonald's. I know a friend of mine, yeah, his wife was craving McDonald's quite a bit. So I think we're just sort of eating normal food that we're eating before. So she was eating quite healthy, I think, yeah.
I know that you said that you all waited a little bit to tell people about the pregnancy. Who was the first person that you all told?
That's a good question. I think we shared with my mom, and then I think she shared with her sister. And then I shared with my two brothers. And then we shared with with their whole family. So like I'm not sure I remember the order now, eh?
Okay.
You know, yeah, and then we started sharing with some of our friends, because also like some of our really close friends that we was expecting as well. So coincidentally, they just shared with us, that they're expecting, and we knew already, but we hadn't shared with them. So we kind of kept quiet and just celebrated, you know, the their baby. So they had their baby like a couple months before ours.
Mm.
So we shared with them as well, and then we sort of shared with most of our close friends, uh, like that stay in South Africa, some in Europe, and yeah, and I think yeah, and then maybe like I think gradually some of like more distant relatives and stuff like that.
Yeah. So what did your mom say?
So my mom was really happy that we were expecting a girl as well, right? Because then we're four boys in our family. So that was a little bit like a relief for her that finally, like I get a granddaughter. So that was quite cool for her. She was obviously very excited. So I mean, she visited recently after the baby was born and spent a couple of months with us. Yeah, so her first granddaughter. So yeah, very exciting for her.
Yes, you spoke earlier about being in fatherhood training already. Going through your own experiences. What kind of experiences prepared you to become a father?
Yeah, so I mean, like I've got a very strong Christian background. So we grew up going to church every Sunday with my mom, and so like my church, we did this course. It's actually called manhood or something like that, right? So there's like 10 books you go through, each with different principles, from like communication, relationships, and stuff like that. So that I think was quite a helpful like course that I did. Like a lot of those like lessons were sort of like lifetime lessons. So I think from that sort of like spiritual perspective, there's been that training that I've had. And I suppose, I don't know, like I think just age helped me a little bit, like when you get to 45, like there's only one path left now, right? You gotta get on with the program, right? So yeah, so I think I feel like it was time, something different. So I've just left my corporate career now after 2 decades of it. So that was great, but I think now I'm sort of looking forward to like a different like phase in my life, like about family, so like going into entrepreneurship as well. So I'll be looking to sort of do something outside the corporate world, and maybe something more independent, more social entrepreneurship space. So a little bit more meaning from both a personal and a professional perspective, hopefully.
Can you talk about your relationship with your father?
Yeah, so my dad is late. Yeah, but my dad was a very, very principled man, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, and I learned a lot from him, and he was sort of like the glue of the family,
Mm-hmm.
so whenever there was issues in the family, my dad was always the person that everybody would feel comfortable to go to and confide and try and find a solution. So I sort of grew up with that, and I'm the oldest son myself. Um, so I sort of grew up with that responsibility that I learned from my dad,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of taking responsibility, and being sort of responsible to keep the family together, and making sure that everybody is well taken care of. So yeah, so that's sort of like my memory of my dad,
Mm-hmm.
um, growing up with him, and I mean, you worked very hard. So my mom um, was, what they call them, what, home executives now. So my mom only started working like when we were like quite grown. I think she started working in her mid 40s.
Mm.
So my dad was sort of like the breadwinner for a very, very long time, like pretty much throughout my upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I've always sort of seen fatherhood as providing, being that sort of stability, that voice of reason and that family unity, not just for our family, but the broader, Mafuela family as well.
That's awesome.
What's one principle or one moral that you want to pass down to your daughter that your dad passed down to you?
Yeah, so I think unity, um, and doing and doing the right thing. You know, so So my dad was always big on doing the right thing, even if it was at your expense, and keeping the the unity of the family, and taking care of each other as well. So that's something that my dad always spoke about, and making sure that we stay together. So I've got two brothers, um, and making sure that you're not just successful for yourself, but you making sure that you pull as you rise yourself. So that's something that I would want to pass to my daughter, that life is a lot more than just yourself. There's a whole world out there.
Yeah, for sure. Do you feel like you want to have more children?
Yeah, so like I'm definitely for a big family. So like, I mean, my parents, both sides, I mean, they're quite a bit. So almost in the double digit numbers.
Mm.
Yeah. So maybe I won't get quite that far, maybe 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but I suppose, like, I mean, we discuss it every now and then with my wife to say, like, if we're gonna get to 5, we probably need to adopt, right? I don't know whether we still have got the energy to do 5 biological kids, so probably not. so I think we're open to adopting if the circumstances are right, so I'm definitely more for a big family, and my wife maybe a little bit less so, but yeah, I think we'll probably sort of 3, 4, 5 thereabouts,
Okay.
if if it happens that way.
So you became a dad a little later in life. How did you enjoy or appreciate the younger years of your life, the 20s, the 30s? Like what did you experience? Like, what did you were you able to travel the world, see the world?
So born and bred in Zim. So I'm Zimbabwean by birth. I did all my schooling there. So I moved here to South Africa, for greener pastures, maybe going on 13, 14 years, thereabouts. So I mean, I've worked a little bit as well in Zambia. Um, so so yeah, so I think I've had some like really good opportunities both in Zim and in South Africa as well. So I worked for quite established financial services companies, and I've had like very interesting opportunities through the journey in different aspects of the industry. So I think that was good in a sense, because like I don't know, like I don't know what the formula is, but I kind of feel it feels a little bit more structured, easier for me now, after like almost like a whole career to start a family. I think in my 20s could have been hectic. I'm not sure. maybe I could have done okay. I don't know. Yeah.
It's hectic. I'll start. I had my first child at 21, so yeah, it is hectic.
Okay, I can imagine. I think at 21, I probably needed taking care of myself, right? So, so I can imagine like the responsibility of trying to build a career, build a family. Because like now, I feel like a lot of my mindset is about building a family,
Mhm.
and sort of like also getting my career to work for me as opposed to work for my career.
Yeah,
Right? I think in my 20s, like I don't know how much control I had of my career. Really, I think the career was more controlling me.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So yeah. So I feel like now is probably a good time for me. But at least that's my perspective, I suppose, in my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Ideally, I wouldn't, suggest anybody have a kid at 20, 21, 22, 23. Wait, to learn more about yourself, get yourself financially stable. So yeah, I agree with everything you said. Um,
Okay.
a couple of weeks ago, we spoke with someone from Kenya, and he talked about like the rite of passage process and becoming a man. Did you ever experience any like rites of passage things?
Just explain it to me, like what you mean by that exactly. I don't want to assume I understand it.
Yeah. So he talked about when he was, I think either 12 or 13.
Mm,
He went through him and like some of the other people that he grew up with and his dad.
yeah.
They all went out into like the forest and
All right. Oh no, I know what you mean. Yeah. So it's a common practice across a lot of African cultures and customs, but not in my experience though, right? So I mean, my parents are Ndebele. I don't know whether Ndebele people in South Africa do that, but I definitely know some tribes in South Africa do it,
mhm,
but I'm not an expert really in that space. So myself personally, no. Um, I think more it's just like more just sort of like everyday mentorship from my dad. Like
okay.
so just learned life from my dad. And then when I was older, like my church had this, sort of like manhood course that I was talking about earlier on,
Mhm,
that I went through. So like it's a whole year program. So you go through like 10 different books, sort of like Christian books with different principles around like money, like relationships and communication and marriage and all sorts of different things. So like that's something I did, more from a church perspective,
mhm.
but not that custom. But I'm familiar with, like I know about it, but I've never experienced anything myself personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite books out of the books you read during that time, and why?
Yeah. So it's a book by my pastor called Building People, Building Dreams. Um, and so it's really about his vision of the church and the nation of Zimbabwe, and how all of us have a role to play in that, and having dominion in your different areas, and building, one person at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time, and ultimately, one nation as well. So it's really more like his, call it his love letter to the nation and to his church. So like lots of principles in that book that he shared. Yeah, so I mean, he's actually American by birth,
Mhm.
um, but moved to Zim in 1978, 2 years before our independence. And I mean, he's quite a very sort of like funny guy, and makes a lot of jokes. And one of his jokes is that I'm the true African American. And he literally is an African American, because I mean he's lived longer in Zim than he's lived in America. And by the way, he's a white guy, so the irony of him calling himself the true African American. so so yeah, I've learned lots from him over the years. I've got big respect for him.
That's cool. So can you talk about like Zimbabwe and South Africa? Like,
So
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, I was finished. I was just gonna say, like, can you talk about like the culture, like some of the food, the things that you all do out there?
Yeah, so I mean, Southern Africa, we like as you know, like African borders were a legacy of colonization, right?
Yeah.
So there's like lots of like similarities in the different countries, even sometimes languages, right? So Ndebele people, for example, that are a sizable population in Zim, are originally from South Africa. So they migrated, back in the days, the Nguni kingdom that was mostly in present day KZN. So they migrated from there into present day Zim now. So that's sort of like where my people come from, and originally from here, South Africa. But my great grandfather was actually from Swaziland, actually.
Mm.
So there's lots of similarities, lots of languages. I mean, the one thing with Africa is that it's both a blessing and a case sometimes, right? Because then sometimes it also causes disunity,
Mm.
unfortunately, right? Because then sometimes the simple minds would look at the differences as something to pull people apart, and I mean, I'm sure you've heard all the tribal wars and tribalism in Africa, and some of it persists even up to today, you know. But then there's lots of similarities as well. So I mean, I've worked a little bit in Zambia. Like, I mean, we share some common languages as well with Zambia, so that we with a lot of our neighboring countries, so yeah, so I mean, it's a very vibrant, like a lot of young people, but we got lots of challenges here as well. So I grew up in a small little town called Mutare in Zim, uh, and went to school there, and then went to university in Zim as well, and then moved to South Africa. I did a few other things here in South Africa as well, from just sort of adding on to my academics. So yeah, lots of potential in Africa, but we also have a lot of issues as well in terms of like unity of purpose, like driving some of the like the values, like what you guys are sharing about fatherhood and the importance of that, like lots of fatherless kids, unfortunately. In South Africa, it's quite a big issue and challenge as well, around that. So I mean, these things do cause a lot of challenges in society, right? Because when kids don't grow up in secure environments, then they don't meet their potential, and so does the country. I mean, South Africa probably has got one of the highest number of unemployed youths, I think, potentially in the world. We got over 10 million unemployed youths in South Africa. So the youth unemployment in South Africa is a massive challenge. And then you can imagine all the kids coming out of that environment. It's not going to be a pretty sight. So, but then there's also, like lots of potential as well, if we get our act together, to address some of these challenges, and grow the economies, and live the full potential of the region. Yeah. So, but I spend quite a bit of time in South Africa, and I go to Zim quite often as well. My mom still stays there, stays there, and I've got lots of family there as well.
What's the overall economy looking like out there? I know out here in America, everything is pretty much going down, like from the stock market to cryptocurrency. Pretty much everything is on a downtrend. Um, how does
Yeah.
it look out there for you?
So it's been very tough. I mean, so for me, obviously, moving to South Africa was mostly because of the economic challenges in Zim. So the Zim economy, over the last 20 years, has pretty much gone nowhere. Probably it's actually, I think it's significantly gone down, even in actual nominal value, right? So we've had like numerous recessions, even depressions altogether in Zim. We've had, I think, probably the highest recorded inflation ever, I think, right? Because I think we probably even beat the German one and the Yugoslavia one, Venezuela one, sorry. So Zim has gone through some really, really tough times. I mean, unemployment in Zim is I don't know whether they even recorded it in the last few in the last sort of 10 years, 20 years. So it's extremely high. I think Zim has probably got one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. So, but South Africa is also got it's not doing that much better from an unemployment perspective. I think youth unemployment in South Africa is over 50% as well. So it's quite big. So the economies here are not doing well at all. I mean, South Africa has got a big economy, so the biggest stock market on the continent. So the potential is there. I mean, it's almost two worlds when you look at South Africa's economy, because the really good is really good, the really bad is like just as like another African country, quite struggling, low growth, high unemployment, high inflation, low investment, poor education outcomes. So, but at the same time, there's also some silver linings as well. There's a lot of conversation starting to happen to address that. I mean, I think, for example, like just recently, they started the free trade area in Africa. So, I mean, coincidentally, like South Africa, I mean, Africa as a whole contributes the bulk of global resources, but we contribute like less than 10% of, trade, right? I mean, like the average African country trades more with the rest of the world than we trade with ourselves, which makes absolutely no sense, right? So there's a lot of conversations going at the AU level, African Union level, to try and get more unity going on across the continent, and to try and promote more inter-African trade, development and growth. And so, but I mean, we've got everything here. We've got the human resources, we've got the natural resources, we've got the young population, we've got everything except order, and hopefully we're starting to get our act together, put the policies in, and hopefully the next couple of generations will see a different outcome than we currently seeing at the moment.
I know, since you're talking about like the economy, I think a couple of months ago, maybe, have you heard about this where they found like a couple, like 20 tons of iron ore or gold, and was that in Ghana?
I might have missed that, but I mean, for sure, like a lot of African countries. I mean, Angola has got one of the highest like minerals, on the continent. I mean, Zim in South Africa have got a lot of platinum, which is essential for the car industry. If we could harness that, I mean, South Africa has always been known for gold, and then countries like Nigeria, like lots of oil there.
Yeah.
I think Nigeria is in the top 10 oil producing in the world. So like I think minerals wise, I mean, I think we probably contribute about 50-60% of minerals, globally. So we got a lot of minerals for sure. I don't think that's where our problem is. I think our problem is more how we just make that more meaningful for everybody. So I'm gonna switch off this one.
Okay, I'll pause it.
Okay.
Or you pause it.
So can you guys still hear me? We definitely got we definitely quite indulged in that space. I think it's really more about how to use it effectively. I know Namibia, for example, is going to be doing a massive project in hydrogen, right? So I think they invested about 10 billion US dollars into that space, and setting up a sovereign fund to actually support those social projects in that country. So I think those are the sort of projects that we need to see more of. I know Ghana with cocoa, like, so so they trying to beneficiate that quite a bit as well, because they've been exporting sort of raw cocoa for a long time, and not benefiting from the value add of that industry. So Ghana, I think from a cocoa perspective, I'm quite aware, but but I'm sure they probably got other minerals as well, like a lot of other African countries have.
Yeah, I think they were saying like because they found so much of it, it was supposed to boost. I think it put like 17 billion. This is like an estimate. They put like $17 billion into the economy. I'm trying to remember what country it was. I think it might have been Ghana, but I'm not sure. I guess I have to
Okay.
look it up. But
Yeah. No, we definitely don't have any shortage of minerals. Yeah, that's not one of our problems. So I think even like Zim, my own country, like lots of minerals. I mean, Botswana, for example, has done very well with diamonds. So Botswana has been one of the few shining examples on the African continent. So they discovered diamonds a while back, and they've invested a lot in that from the resources they got from diamond into their own people. And I think Botswana now is almost like a middle income country from an income perspective. They've actually done extremely well. So from diamonds to gold to platinum to oil, we got it all here, except that we have not really been able to use it effectively.
So where do you see the economy going from here? So if you had to project maybe 5 to 10 years from now, you think it's going to be similar, worse, or better?
I think definitely better, because I mean the one thing that's working in our advantage is that the technological advancements in the last sort of decade or so have presented an opportunity for Africa to leapfrog development without some of the constraints that other industrialized countries had to deal with, right? So, for example, if you take energy, right? I mean, right now with renewable energy, you could literally set up shop almost anywhere, whereas before with a lot of fossil fuel energies, it was a lot more difficult. So there's an opportunity for Africa, for example, to really tap into renewable energies. I mean, we've got so much wind, solar, sun, we've got dams and rivers for hydrogen electricity as well. So something like just the renewable energy sector could solve our triple challenge of unemployment, climate change, and inclusive growth all in one, right? So, and I think the free trade area is going to be quite important, for Africa, because then we've got to get the trading going amongst ourselves. So that looks like, hopefully it's going to pick up. I know in Ghana, for example, they started their own, car industry, right? But then at the moment they have to compete with all of these big brands globally, right? Whereas when we've got the free trade area now, so a manufacturer in Ghana would be able to sell across the continent without tariffs, right? Whereas all the other products coming from the rest of the world would obviously have to, pay tariffs and all of that. So I think so I think definitely the business community is starting to come to the fore in Africa, whether from a connectivity perspective, from, renewable energies. There's still a lot of work to be done, harnessing the resources that we've got. So I mean, I'm definitely very optimistic about our continent going forward.
are you are you familiar with Credo Mutwa?
From which country?
I think he's from South Africa. He died maybe last year or the year before. It was fairly
Oh,
recently when he passed. But
okay. What was he known for?
well, he was like he was kind of like a shaman, and he used to go around and talk about like the history of people. And he said that life started in Southern Africa, and
Mm,
people like branched out and went up through Africa and like went to the other bodies of land. I
mm,
was gonna ask you, what you thought about that, or if you're familiar
okay.
with him.
Yeah, not him in particular, but I mean, I'm currently reading right now a book by Steve Biko's son,
Who
about
is it?
Steve Biko's son.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve Biko. So Steve Biko was like a black conscious leader in the during the Mandela period times, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I think he passed on just before South Africa's independence. So I mean, he talks a lot about African identity, right? And I think that's something very important for Africa, and we really struggle, I think, to come up with a cohesive, narrative around what is African identity, right? Because I mean, like on the continent, we probably got like over 2,000 languages, right? Which is not great, right? Because then it's something to celebrate, but it's also got its own unique challenges as well. Because then it means that people don't easily relate with each other. They don't easily communicate well. Because I mean, like if you're American, like everybody's speaking English, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like African American on the West Coast and African American on the East Coast, like at least you got like a good starting point. Whereas in Africa, literally from one village to another could be different languages altogether, right? So that can present some practical challenges, So and I like what is, I mean, I haven't finished the book, but I like one of the things that he's saying is that if you look across the African continent, right, we never identified ourselves as individuals. So somebody's just coming to say hi. Oh, yeah, there you go. So we always identified ourselves with community, right? So as an African, so in South Africa, it's called Ubuntu, right? But it's a concept that is pretty much across the African continent, which is that you are because we are, right? And I think it's very important because we need like an overarching identity, that is above like simple things like what language you speak and that sort of thing, because then we're never going to agree on that sort of stuff, right? So even like now there's been like a little bit of a drive to use Swahili as the official language of the AU. But I mean, even that is going to be a bit of a challenge because there's lots of Africans that don't understand Swahili, right? So there's no, it's difficult for us to sort of rally around, like a common identity, as Africans. And I think like a lot of thought, sort of influencers and thought leaders, and I suspect the one you mentioned was one of them, are starting to think around that topic to say, like, how do we make this thing work for everybody? What's our common identity? What makes you African from Malawi, from Zim, from South Africa, from Nigeria? Like, it's not always obvious, right? We got our own issues there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've come across Ubuntu. I've been talking to my kids about that like a whole lot, like what it means. Like if you're better, I'm better. You know what I mean? So with that in mind, like you treat the other person better than you want to be treated because you want to be better. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I actually looked at the word. I broke it down. Like it's 3 U's in the word Ubuntu, and you look at it, it starts with you and it ends with you.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I
You know what I'm
never thought
saying? Like, and then and then it's you right in the middle. And then it's like you right in the middle of it. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
I was breaking the word down. Like, man, the word is even spelled great.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think if you think about it, we could even take it at a global level, right? Because like I think people of African descent, wherever we are, we have had like challenges in growing as a people, right? Not against anybody else, but just for us, kind of thing, right? And and I think all African people across the world, would need to, help each other to, to find ourselves as a people and to take a rightful place, in the community of nations, right? Because I mean, I think about like African Americans, like how much money like some African Americans have got, and how much good they could do by partnering with some brothers here, and using some of that capital for good use here. I was listening to one presentation, and someone said, like, if you took just the African Americans in the US, it would be the 9th biggest economy on the continent, right? And I think we've got a lot to share with each other, learn from each other, build each other up, and I think we should definitely do more of that, not just in culture, but also maybe even in business, economics, like a lot of other things. Like I know there's like lots of people doing good things. Like I know Oprah has got a school here, for example, so bless her, she's done well, but I think there's a lot more that can be done to make progress.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Where's the Oprah school at? What country is?
It's in South Africa. Yeah, I don't know where
Okay.
exactly, but yeah, but she built the Oprah school here in South Africa. Yeah.
And I know, well, Akon is from. You familiar with Akon, the singer?
I know him. I think he's from Senegal, I think, or somewhere there.
Okay. Yeah, I know he do a lot of work out there.
Yeah,
But,
no, he's invested a lot in his home country. I know that, yeah.
Yeah. But what you're saying is right. We do need to, connect and reunite with each other.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, like all African people, like they originally came from here somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely, and I mean, I always say this thing, like it's like to define your own identity. It's not like against anybody else. It's just for African people, because I think you need to define yourself and have a value and pride in yourself to even be respected by anybody else, right? So I think it's something that I think we definitely need to get right. I mean, like even if you think now, like a lot of African people like die in trying to cross the into Europe, and it's sad because then we're supposed to be creating these opportunities on our continent and having our young people actually want to stay on the continent. We should be going to Europe for holiday and coming back, but because we haven't really managed our affairs very well, we don't see the opportunities that we've got right here at home.
So you said, go ahead, Royce.
No, go ahead, bro.
No, I was just gonna ask about the. You were saying a lot of young people die trying to going to Europe.
Yeah,
That's what you said.
Yeah. So that so like at the top of the continent there's they like people cross into like Italy and those sort of places, trying to look for opportunities. So like there's lots of like human trafficking and stuff like that going on, because I mean people are just trying to leave the continent to look for opportunities, right?
Yeah.
But often they go to Europe and then they realize it's not all rosy there either. So like I think a lot of African people, like I mean like are still get like being abused and and suffering, because we're not sorting out our own continent, which is sad, and it's very easy to fix it. I think we've got everything we need here. We just need to get our act together, and I think we will, and we are, but not fast enough.
So you're old enough to witness Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
I only seen him on TV or in a book. So for me, from my perspective, I see the greatness. I see what he did, the sacrifices he made. What did you draw from him while he was here? Like, cause you were right there with him, right there. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had the privilege of seeing him in person, but not like next to me, but
yeah,
in the airspace, right? So
like, that's Nelson Mandela right there. He's right there.
yeah. I think the thing I really admire about that generation of Nelson Mandela So like I put like Nelson Mandela, Julius Nyerere, Joshua Nkomo in Zimbabwe, Sankara, that generation of Africans. They really understood that you were an African before you were a nationalist, right? Or you were an African before your tribe, right? So we're starting to lose a little bit of that sense of being a true Pan-Africanist, right? And that's the thing that I really admire about Nelson Mandela. And I think Mandela was a proud African, but he was also a humanist as well, because he managed to pull the nation of South Africa, which is quite diverse, and that diversity sometimes comes with a lot of challenges, right? To try and create the unity and the unit of purpose and that sort of thing. And I think Mandela was quite unique and in his own class there, in what he was able to do for the nation of South Africa. I mean, I think he remains one of the people that I truly admire. I quite also like what Barack Obama also managed to do in the US as well. For someone coming from a minority group to be able to achieve what he achieved. I think it was, and I mean, obviously Africans are majority here, but for Mandela to be able to drive the independence of South Africa the way he did, I think he's a great man, and there's a lot for us to learn from him and to keep his legacy.
Yeah, good stuff.
Do you feel like he had, I mean, he was in prison for 26 years?
27 years.
27?
Yeah.
And I know like that can change a person, but do you feel like he kind of shifted in his stance on things? So like from being a like revolutionary to going to prison to becoming the president, how do you feel like he changed or kind of evolved over time?
That's a good question, Raheem. I think he certainly became more of a principled pragmatist, right? Because I think South Africa is quite unique in the sense that they ended up getting independence through a negotiated settlement, right? Whereas a lot of countries, I mean, like my country, for example, it was through like a very bitterly fought war, right? So I think Mandela, in my view, he managed to evolve and become a global statesman from someone who was just fighting for only his people. Because I mean, like across the African continent, there's almost like universal, like a recognition of what Mandela stood for, and his deep desire to unite, the African continent, right? I mean, obviously from an economic, progress perspective, there's a lot of work still need to be done even up to now, right? So I think he did his best to set the foundation, but now we need almost a different kind of like freedom now, like almost like economic freedom, right? If I can put it that way, like social justice, like because I think Mandela's generation, they were fighting for like the basic freedoms, like political freedom, right to vote, and that sort of thing. But now we got a different fight altogether: social justice, economic equity, and stuff like that. And I mean, those things are complex, and they're going to probably take a few more generations before we make progress. But I think he had the wisdom. I mean, sometimes I think people judge him unfairly that South Africa is still a very unequal society, and he didn't do enough to to sort inequality and poverty. But I think that's an unfair criticism of the men, really. I mean, I don't think any one person can solve that problem like that. Even Barack Obama couldn't solve all the American problems.
No, he couldn't.
Yeah.
Do you are there talks? So, like in the United States, in the past couple of years, there've been talks about like reparations for slavery and different things like that. Are there talks in South Africa around like similar talks around reparations?
So this one is an interesting one, right? Because I probably have like a bit of a nuanced view on it, right? So I certainly think that it's important to acknowledge the injustices of the past, right? That have been meted out on African people and continue, to this day, right? Whether it's slavery or colonization or some of the more structural barriers and disadvantages that African people face even to this day, right? Even think about human trafficking, and wars. I mean, like all sorts of wars are started on the African continent, because people are trying to, take our resources, etc. Right? But I think it's a challenging one because you got to do it in a way that actually creates progress. Because I mean, for example, affirmative action, is a thing in South Africa, right? But sometimes it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it can create resentment in the other population groups, right? Whereas I think what you're trying to do is create an equal playing field without creating a new round of people feeling like they've been hard done and stuff like that. I don't know how like affirmative action has worked in the US, for example, but in South Africa, for example, like some of the legislation, it's actually quite good legislation, but it hasn't been implemented in a way that has actually produced the intended outcome, which is to level the playing field. I mean, for example, you talk about like doing a tax, and try and rebalance things that way. But I don't know, like I don't think ideas like that are going to work very well because I think they create more problems than they solve. But I certainly think that there has to be some effort to address the imbalances of yesterday without creating new round of unhappiness and tensions, if I can put it that way.
Yeah. So I know your daughter is not old enough to really understand what money is yet, but how do you plan on instilling some morals in regards to money, or how do you plan on teaching your daughter about money?
Yeah, so I think it's important to know that you can't spend all your money. I think that's the starting point. you got to spend a little bit less than you actually earn, so that you can get yourself to a point of some level of financial security, right, and be able to invest, in yourself and invest in your community around you. Because I think if we're just consuming everything that we make, we'll never make progress, right? So I think that's quite important, to teach my daughter that, I mean, that's my area of specialty, financial planning and wealth management. So definitely spend less than you earn, save as much as you can, and get to a point, where you're financially secure to be able to have agency to make different choices, in your life without having to just sort of, survive from hand to mouth on a daily basis.
All right, so I know we getting kind of getting close to time. So I have one last question for you. So this question is usually like the last question, but I'm gonna go ahead and put it out now. What if you can give advice to any new father? You're a new father yourself. Any new father, any expectant father, what would it be?
So, so if it's well ahead of time, if you're planning on starting a family, I would say, get your finances in order, because I think that will help. Because then it's less pressure on yourself, because then you can be a more present dad, right? My wife, she's from Sweden, and I think the first few times I went to Sweden, I was quite amazed at their social, like support system, where they give a couple almost up to 2 years of paid parent leave, right? And I think it's one of the few countries, at least that I've been to, that does that, right? So they really invest, in families, right? So they value families, and no wonder Sweden actually has got one of the, the most, progressive societies, happier people, stronger families, and that sort of thing. So, and the challenge, I think, for most other countries is that you almost have to do it for yourself, right? Because then often it's a little bit of a chicken and eggs kind of situation. So I think any expecting father, or if you want to start up a family, is, start saving up, so that you can even take a job that pays a little bit less, but allows you to be more present in your child's life, and you're not sort of just working to the bone, and you're away all the time, and doing 2-3 jobs, which most people, unfortunately, like maybe not most, but like a lot of people, unfortunately, have to do. So I think it's a balancing act. You got to look at this thing in a holistic way, to be present emotionally, financially, spiritually, and all of that. So I think it's a big responsibility to be a father, and you got to juggle a lot of balls in the air, and hopefully, you catch them all before they drop to the ground.
I like that. So more money means you're more present. Well, you could be more present, even more so. You're not worried about where the next meal is coming from.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. So my last question to you, Becky, is a question I already asked you. Actually, is what does fatherhood mean to you? And you gave me a real good answer. I'm gonna read it to you. He said, as a person of faith, one verse in Proverbs answers this the best. A good man shall leave an inheritance to his kids. In addition, it also means I am present in my child's life. We just kind of talked about that. I provide for them not just financially, but also emotionally, spiritually, and socially to ensure they grow up to be the best version of themselves. Fatherhood also means protecting your children and ensuring they are safe from any physical or spiritual harm. Wow. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
So I mean, like, I think my dad, I've got a lot of respect for him. With the little resources that he had, he created, really good opportunities for myself and my two brothers. So I mean, my two younger brothers, one is just finishing off, being a chartered accountant, and then the other one is just finishing off his PhD in law. And I've got two of the highest qualifications in investments and financial planning. So like all three of us, we've had like really good opportunities from an academic perspective, right? And I think it's important to be able to create that environment for your kids to be the best version of themselves, whatever that could be. Maybe my child doesn't want to do a PhD, but maybe he wants to do music school or something, right? So I strongly believe like in the concept of passing it backwards, right? I think one of the challenges we've had in Africa is that every generation starts from zero, often. right? And there's just no momentum that we're building, right? So for me, being able to leave an inheritance for my kids means that my kids and my grandkids don't have to go through some of the challenges that I had to go through myself, and they've got the opportunities and the resources to actually be able to prosper, and I think as a father, that's your role to protect your kids from any harm and to create the right mindset, the belief, the faith, the opportunities for them to thrive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Young, did you have any other questions?
No, no questions. I really enjoyed the conversation, man. It's been a good interview, Beki. I appreciate you coming on and speaking.
Hall of Fathers.
What'd you
We'll
say?
put it in the Hall of Fathers. What you
Oh,
think, man?
yeah.
Hall of Fathers.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
No,
we changed it from the Hall of Fame to the Hall of Fathers, man. We're gonna put this one in there. It's been a great one.
No, great. No, thanks, Raheem, and thanks, Royce, for the invite, and thanks for connecting on LinkedIn. That was quite nice. I quite like LinkedIn. It's given me an opportunity, to connect professionally, personally, with many people across the world, which I really, really appreciate. I think technology is definitely making the world, much smaller, and we can definitely learn from each other and learn from the best around the world. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel anymore because there's always somebody doing it well and that you can just tap into and grow from that perspective. Yeah. So it's been absolutely great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sure, man. So, and if you had to tell people where to look you up at or meet you online, how would they reach you?
So I'm on like all the social medias. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I've got a personal account and like financial literacy, which is something that I'm very passionate about. Then I'm on Twitter, TikTok. Yeah. So yeah, all the sort of main social media platforms. So yeah, I think I did share with you. So so any one of those, yeah, people are free to reach out to me if they want to connect, and I'll be happy to.
Yeah, I have links to all those in the description below. I got all those links, so definitely thanks for sharing. All right, so
Great.
without any further ado, don't hang up yet, man. We'll have a little post game, a little cool off, if you will. So for myself, for Royce Briales, for my colleague Dr. Raheem Young, and also for our very special guest Beki. I want to say the last name right. I want to say it. Get it one more time. One more time.
Beki Mafuela.
Mafuela. Did I say it right?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. All right, cool. Beki Mafuela. Thanks again for listening to Welcome to Fatherhood Interviews, and stay tuned for further announcements.